Right, so in your energy today, okay, so Spirit wants you to know that they want you to treat yourself, okay? You've gone through a lesson. You've graduated this lesson and you've changed for the better. And you are this warrior woman, okay? And if you're a man, obviously put that where that fits. But they're concerned you're not taking a break, because we've got healing out here and recovery. So I think it's just a nudge to be kinder to yourself, okay? And rest when you can, whatever that looks like for you. You know, some people find rest in meditation, some people find rest in reading, whatever it is, but just try to tap into that, because Spirit's a little bit concerned that although you have graduated this lesson, try and get some alone time if you can, and try to be kind to yourself in that alone time. Maybe you're finding it quite hard to do that, or if you are doing that, Spirit's saying yes, well done, keep doing that, because what you've had in your energy is quite difficult, okay? You had people playing mind games with you and possibly had you under some sort of mind control. You know, like, hopefully it's not on that kind of serious level, but put it where it fits. But they definitely had you in some sort of codependency, and that's where they wanted you. But this person or people, put it where it fits, had no desire to be loyal to you, which is strange. They just wanted you chained up to them, you know, that, and perhaps you were for a while, you know, you were under their spell, so to speak. But that's over. You graduated it, that's done. And now this person's in heartbreak. Possibly you were there for a long time, but that's not the energy I'm picking up today. Interestingly, despite how this person or people carried on, and of course it doesn't have to be romantic, and when it talks about loyalty, it could just be somebody simply not valuing you the way you should have been. But you know who you are now, okay? And you used to have this sort of people-pleasing tendencies, and they could still be there, but for the most part, you're shedding it, you've identified it, and you probably do a little pause now before you find yourself just falling into that trap again, or you're being asked to. So when people ask or speak to you, have a moment before you jump into this sort of all-giving, loving, cup of love energy, Mother Mary energy. You know, you don't need to save anyone, just yourself. So yeah, you don't need closure from these people or person, and I think you just consider them baggage at this point that you need to let go of. And perhaps that's why recovering and healing is out, because you still have a little bit of healing to do in regards to this. Although you've learnt the lesson, you've dropped the bags, you know, the baggage of this, but you've still got the strain on your back, metaphorically. But weirdly, this person only loves you, okay? It's not weirdly, it's just that's not how they behaved. So they're in heartbreak. They actually didn't know love like you before, and perhaps this was their style, you know, like they play games and use manipulative tactics and so forth. Hopefully we're not dealing with some sort of warlock or something who, you know, does more than just mind games, but I wouldn't be too surprised. Yeah, so that's their energy, and Spirit wants you to know that they're very attracted to you. So I don't know if you doubted your attractiveness, you know, physically or mentally or something. You know, that's just not the case. But it says you know the truth, so I suspect you know that, but that's maybe just sort of some confirmation in case you put your, you know, your validation outside and you wanted to know. This person believed time went so fast, so I think maybe you possibly think that too, you know, like maybe you were in this scenario, or it does feel a bit like being under a spell, but I don't mean that literally, but obviously take it where it fits. But you were codependent to a situation that didn't serve you, and you've changed, you've graduated this, okay? You're much more poised now, you've got a new life here, and you're almost there, okay? So Spirit just wants you to, you already recognize you are the Empress, okay? And you are walking karma, and it's just a matter of time before karma takes place, and that's obviously lessons. But you were in a karmic lesson essentially here, for you to wake up from this spell. And again, I'm saying spell loosely, but put it where it fits. But you were under the illusion you needed these people or person or thing, and you're very aware you don't now. But I'm being brought here, you know, just treat yourself, be kindest to yourself, get yourself that gift, or, you know, whatever it might be, because you are in recovery and you were under some serious mental attack, is sort of what I feel like. But Spirit wants you to know half of that was because they're scared of your gifts. And I think this could be like in the 3D and in the 5D, your spiritual gifts as well. So maybe you just have an energy about you, an aura, which would make sense if, you know, you're an empress. It's just a case of that, but you hadn't recognized your own empress status, but you're almost there if you haven't already, okay? And you're going to be in this more poised energy if you're not already there, and Spirit wants you to know that. Yeah, so this person thinks about wedding, like a wedding with you. It does come out often. They think about serious commitment with you, but I think you've left this behind you. You're healing from it. You don't want somebody who isn't loyal, and I think, you know, it doesn't always have to be cheating, and it doesn't always have to be romantic, but you just don't want anybody in your energy that, because you're an empress, that doesn't give you emperor energy or empress energy, because it simply is not going to serve you. It will just pull you backwards. You could be having astral dreams, or for you to note down your dreams. I don't know if you do a dream journal or something. There might be some messages in there. Perhaps your spirit team are trying to connect with you on that level, but that's obviously not going to be for everybody. Yeah, so we do have another card out here, and it doesn't have to be separate, but I have seen it flash out on a few readings, and it's not actually fallen out. There's something about a father, your father's sorry, and again, it doesn't have to be your father. It could be a father figure, it could be somebody in just male energy, older male energy, but whatever you think about them, or they're sorry, and whatever you think about them is correct. So that's just confirmation for somebody. Perhaps this person played mind games, because I'm being pulled here, you know, perhaps they did a bit of a number on you, and maybe that's why you fell into this energy, being sort of potentially manipulated. Hopefully nothing worse than that. Not that, you know, manipulation is pretty awful in its own right, but these people recognize that you see them as an idiot, okay? And that's quite strong, but they sort of, now your energy's left, they're sort of in their alone time, they're sort of wondering what you saw in them to begin with. And to be honest, it could be a soul contract or a karmic contract, but you might actually feel like that now. You don't really understand what you saw in them, but maybe it has some connection to do with a father figure. But again, it doesn't have to be, so just let that go if that doesn't resonate. But perhaps there was a wound there, or you just had a codependency wound. You were looking outside, you were looking to the other to fill you up, until spirits and your angels and ancestors came along and made sure you realized different, and you graduated that. But I think obviously when you graduate, it still takes a bit of time for it to sink in, you know, like, but whatever you're doing, you can do this, okay? And maybe it's difficult for you to give yourself that extra rest time, or it's difficult for you to pat yourself on the back and stuff like that, but you're doing it, and you can do this, and Spirit wants you to know that. We have got the King of Swords out here. I do believe that's you. I think you found your sword. I think you were using a cup of love most of your life, and people were tipping that cup upside down and putting dirty water back in it, and you're making yourself sick drinking all this crap water, until you realized you can get water from the divine. You don't need anyone else to fill your cup up, and you can find your own water. And I think that's what you've been doing, and that's why you're healing. Maybe it's hurting a little bit. When you look back, you can see what people were doing in a way that you didn't before, and it's painful to realize that people were playing these games and manipulative games when that's just not your energy, that's not your premise. And and maybe you're even worried, you know, like because you possibly, although you're shedding these people pleasing skills, skills still, that's not an accident. Perhaps you're very skillful at people pleasing, and it's a skill you kind of got to unlearn. Maybe it's some sort of trauma-based appeasement that you learned as a child, and you know it was to survive, and it got you into a karmic lesson cycle that was hard to break. But you did it. But just remember that you do have a sword. I don't think you're using your cup of love as much. It doesn't mean you don't have the cup of love, but you're just giving that cup of love to yourself, where you were constantly giving it out, and people were either saying no thank you, or they were literally tipping it upside down and replacing it with dirty water, and you're poisoning yourself to some degree. Obviously these are just metaphors, so please don't take things literally. But yeah, the energy, I think maybe you'll be a bit surprised, like this energy, how serious they feel about you. Yeah, this person was a page of wands upside down. I think you found them quite frustrating. This person gets bored in relationships, so whether you had a fully fledged relationship with them, or you had a situationship with them, or whatever it might have been, and again it doesn't have to be romantic, they're generally just bored, and they were possibly bringing disturbing issues your way to jolt you, because they're just very discontent, but they do have very strong feelings for you, regardless of them appearing like the situation was totally unrequited. Or at least if it wasn't unrequited love, you just felt like it wasn't equal. You know, you were the one holding the emotional labour, but you're not anymore because you graduated it. Anything else, please, Spirit, and the highest good of all? Yeah, so I think this person is just also going down memory lane, especially now you're stepping into this recovery, healing energy. Your vibration just isn't the same. You're not holding their energy anymore. You've let this go. You might be looking back and having a look at it, and maybe it's, you know, impacting you a little bit. You feel a bit, maybe you feel like you wasted a lot of time or something like that. But just be grateful and graceful with yourself. But regardless, now you've done this, it's like their karma has to happen, because it couldn't happen whilst you were there. It had to happen, that they had to learn the lesson when they're out of the picture. And that's not just physically, it's energetically. Yeah, so I think you were hoping this person would be an emperor. Or perhaps you were, for a long time, you were under the illusion that they were. You know, you were that codependent to them. You couldn't see the truth about them. And now I think you recognise that they certainly not one. They'd quite like to be, though. And if anyone's the emperor here, it would be you, okay, because we've got the Empress card. But I think this is the only energy that you're actually looking for to come into your energy now. I think you just are fed up of King of Wands upside down suitors that just haven't done the work yet. And so you should be, because that's how it works. You need to meet people on the same frequency as you. Yeah, so I think you've had to endure a lot of adversity whilst you were in this people-pleasing energy, and not recognising your Emperor status. But you have graduated it. I'm keep being called back. You have graduated this. And many people go many lifetimes and they don't. And you did. And you probably have gone through lifetimes and you didn't. You submitted to this. You agreed to being chained up. You agreed to being with somebody that wasn't loyal at the heart. And again, it doesn't have to be romantic. And you've done it. But I think there's like a feeling of... just a bit of... I wouldn't say despair, because despair sounds a bit big. I don't feel like... possibly a bit of sadness. But... that's okay. Allow yourself to feel what you need to feel, but do push through, call on the angels, and just recognize you are recovering. You don't run a marathon and then you can run a marathon 5 minutes later. You need to recover. And that's essentially what you've been doing. Yeah, I do think you're thinking about the past a lot. I think maybe you're thinking about you wish that these people could be what you wanted them to be, or recognize that they should have been, or that they should have treated you better in a way that you haven't recognized before, and that's okay. But they're just not your people. They were a lesson, and you've learned the lesson, and you will meet people that are chime with you, that actually resonate with you, and you can actually work together rather than it being sort of this friction of karmic lessons all the time. But Spirit is pulling me here again. Remember, a lot of this was to do because people were actually scared of your gifts. So maybe you're quite intelligent or capable or anything 3D that people of lower vibration, you know, because they're in that sort of insecure comparative energy, would find an issue, and you were getting backlash off that, and that's why they decided to play games and so forth, because they didn't feel good enough in your energy. And maybe, you know, maybe they could feel your Empress divine energy, and it showed them up, and they reacted in a way which was not very divine. Anything else, Spirit, for the highest good of all? Please allow the messages to fall out for the highest good of all and God's will. This person that you've let go of, and it does feel romantic, but again, readings often translate, so it doesn't have to be. This person was more interested in third parties than having anything loyal, and I think they wanted to make you... They have an appetite, let's say, and they wanted you to be on that list of food, like rather than the main course. Even though they enjoyed you the most, you know, like say, for instance, you know, I don't know why this is coming in, but you're a delicious starter, and they actually prefer the starter to the main meal, but I don't know, they like the variety, let's say, and maybe they were giving you this energy, and I think you knew this person was a bit of King of Wands, and King of Wands to me is somebody a bit showy offy. I know it doesn't have to mean that, but the energy I'm picking up, you know, somebody who's very worldly, very materialistic, sort of not that tapped in spiritually, but I know it doesn't always mean that, but I have to go with the energy that I'm in now. But so they put you in a hanged man position for a long time, possibly waiting for union, like you were waiting for union, believing that they're an emperor, but really they're an upside down King of Wands. I don't even think it deserves to be upright. But interestingly, they do want reunion with you now, and they're in the hanged man position. They're in the heartbreak because you graduated it. Your energy's not around. You became your own emperor. You might have actually met an emperor, but you definitely become your own emperor also, because you're in this empress status. Anything else, Spirit, for the highest good of all? Please allow the messages to fall out for the highest good of all. Yeah, this person didn't make you happy. I think you're recognizing that. Maybe that's the energy I'm feeling earlier. Maybe you drop into the feelings and you realize how harsh people have been, or how unfair people have been, and how unhappy people made you. And it's not so much they made you unhappy, but you were drinking from that cup, and it was dirty water, and it's perhaps it took you a long time to recognize it was dirty water. And maybe there's also part of you that you knew it was dirty water, but you didn't know that there was fresh, clean water available until you recognized that's what you were giving everybody. And then you started drinking that fresh water that you were giving everybody for yourself. And then the divine started filling up your cup. And now you're not giving your clean, fresh water to a cup of water, which is love, to any of these people. So of course they're going to be in hanged man position. Of course they're now going to think, oh, I should have actually had a reunion with that person, and not had such an appetite where I don't even want that main meal. I don't even want that dessert. You know, I've had enough of chocolate cake, or, you know, whatever it is. You're off the menu. Yeah, they kept you in this energy. 5 of coins upside, 5 of coins. So they made you just constantly feel like you're out in the cold, not good enough, not worthy, that there's something wrong with you. You don't deserve to be chosen. And now they feel like that. And that's just how it goes. It's just because you've recognised your Empress status. So the energy, you're not holding it anymore. You're not offering a cup of love. So they've got to feel what they gave you. But they didn't, you know, in previous lifetimes, this hasn't happened. You stayed outside in the cold. You stayed there, chained up, waiting for them to choose you as a dessert or a starter, whilst they eat lots of other foods in front of your face. Again, it's just a metaphor. But you're healing from this now. Yeah, and perhaps it got in the way of you working on things and possibly just like working on yourself. But Eight of Cups is here. You have moved on from this. And it's a tower for them. You weren't supposed to graduate this. You weren't, especially for one person, they didn't see it coming. They didn't think you would choose recovery over them. They thought your heart was bigger than that. Perhaps you had loads of cups of love and now you don't have any. They're all behind like a guard, like in a safe, and all you've got is swords now. And that, not that you haven't got any love anymore, it's just you don't give it out. Not just to anyone. Not now you started to recognise people-pleasing tendencies that you had, and possibly it became a skill and you didn't even realise. I saw Leo and King of Wands is out here, so there is strong fire here, but I'm not that bothered about star signs, only because it's just energy. These people were selfish. If it's not just one person, perhaps that's the sadness or unhappiness that you're tapping into, but it's not, you're selfish again. It's nothing to do with you. It's over. This is who they are. It's not a reflection of your worth. Yeah, they were in devil energy. Yeah, and they probably didn't want you to know that. Yeah, manipulative. We saw mind control earlier. Oh, that's too many, Spirit. Yeah, these people love bombing you. So perhaps they said that, you know, a little nice thing here and there, you know, so you're like, oh, you know, maybe they're not that bad. Maybe they do really love me or like me. In some ways, you become a spirit guide to these people. I got an image of a rug then, like you were this gorgeous, comfortable rug, and they were lying all over you, eating all this gorgeous food, and you've taken it away. So now they're on a cold floor and possibly outside. And Spirit wants you to know that they're struggling because they couldn't control you. For the most part, they've got away with everything because they managed to control you. This person will contact you soon, but Spirit wants you to know they're not in deep regret. Yes, they're getting the karma. Yes, they're feeling left outside. Yes, they wish they had reunion with you rather than eating all these other gorgeous foods. Again, please, it's a metaphor. But they're dreaming of you. Maybe that's why the astral dreams have come in. Perhaps your spirit team are actually visiting them. Because you're of divine nature. You work with the divine. You came with peace. You came with love. You didn't have any swords. And these people just putting those swords in your hearts and your body and making life much more difficult than it had to be. And you're a divine feminine empress. But no one can manipulate you anymore. You had to learn this lesson of self-worth, and you graduated it. You became the divine feminine. You became the empress. And it is a journey, you know, and it can take lifetimes to get to this energy, but you've done it. Yeah, it could definitely be a twin flame situation here. Anything else, please, Spirit, for the highest good of all? Leo came out. Again, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, they probably want to take accountability now, even though they're not in deep regret. I think they're on their own journey here, that they're in hangman position, they're in the hangman energy, so they're going to have to start soul searching because your energy is just not there. They used to be able to tap into your energy. Maybe you had telepathic energy with these people, person, and you're not there. You're gone. It's like you didn't exist, and that's difficult for them. That's why they're thinking of these heavy things, like they only loved you, they want serious commitment with you, but I don't think you view this anything as more than baggage. and unhappiness, like that you shed, that still sort of ruminates a little bit in your memory bank. Okay, so we get quite a lot. You've got a large sum of money coming to you, and if it's not that, it's abundance. Maybe getting a large sum of energy, a large sum of new ideas, you know, whatever it might be. But it does say money, so for some of you, it is very much that. Yeah, so you could have been dealing with people that are a covert narcissist. I'm not going to lie, the energy I'm feeling there feels more like full right narcissist. There wasn't much covert about it. But you could also have had some other energies in your energy field. And again, not everyone's a narcissist. You know, some people just have poor impulse control and low empathy, and or just traits. But, you know, just puts it where it fits. Selfish was essentially what was coming out, and that's good enough. Got Libra here, which is about balance. Got Mother figure there. So just put that where that fits. Gemini's coming out. Maybe you found this person a bit split-minded. You know, like they hot and cold, and you didn't know where you stood. You know, it's all part of the mental manipulation. Yeah, they're essentially karmic. This love was a karmic situation that you've graduated. Is there anything else, please, Spirit, for the highest good of all? Yeah, so I'm really feeling their energy, like they're struggling without your cup of love, without your, but your health is improving, and that came out a lot yesterday. And I think you're recognizing that, but maybe there's times and you just go back to the, maybe you get triggered by things sometimes, and you're forced to think of trauma that you, maybe not even just this experience, trauma that was buried, that comes from like parental figures possibly, and it's startling you and making you drop into sadness. But do call on your angels, they are there, and just know you graduated this. And be graceful with yourself, be kinder to yourself, and make sure you're saying the right things to yourself. Don't scare yourself, and don't stop. Whatever you're doing the right things. It might be slow, it might be fast, but also remember, although you're a warrior now and you've got that sword up, we've got King of Swords, you've learned to pick up that sword. Before you weren't using it at all. You weren't. You just had a cup of love for everybody, and you gave that cup of love to yourself. But just make sure you're not giving yourself a dirty cup of love, because that's all you learned. You know, make sure you give it to yourself. But take a break is upside down, and it does make me think, you know, you're struggling to take a break, or, you know, to be kind to yourself. Yeah, just keep listening to your intuition. Make sure your intuition is the loudest voice. I think before you were listening to manipulative energy that didn't have balance, more than your intuition. And your intuition is very strong. It would have to be, because Divine Feminine and Empress would not have a strong intuition, but you were making it small to keep the peace and keep these energies in your life. And now your heart's behind a safe now, and you've got your sword up. I think there still could be a part of you that isn't making your intuition the loudest voice sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, and that's when you're dropping. Yes is here, so I think that's probably right. Just call on your angels, you know, call on the appropriate angel. They'll help you. Yeah. Anything else, Spirit, for the highest good of all, in God's will? Yeah, so the yes fell out. So I for some of you, that's definitely what's happened. That's fine, you know, like, it's a process. It's not all rainbows and what? It's not all rainbows and sunshine. Yeah, you know, we do have different weathers. But communicate clearly to yourself, to the angels. Talk to yourself, but kinder, in a kinder way than you are, or what you've learned. Because I think and find a peaceful resolution with yourself when you are touching on this trauma, or you're getting triggered about people playing in your energy. And You know, I don't think, if I'm tapping into a divine feminine or empress, I doubt you'd be in the energy of like getting someone back or anything like that. But there is divine balance, possibly why the Libra card came out. There's a divine justice in the universe, especially when you recognize the lesson. So you've stepped away from this, and so these people now have to learn what they gave out. Recovery card again. So that's all you need to focus on now, is speaking kindness to yourself, knowing you're healing in recovery mode, that you are this warrior woman, divine feminine, walking empress. Again, gender's not important. Yes, you let go of somebody or people that didn't have a loyal heart. Yes, they were probably covert narcissists and manipulative. Yes, they feel very strongly about you now. The beautiful thick rug that you were providing them, and gorgeous food and cups of love isn't there, you know, of course. That's the way it goes. And you're not losing anything. They weren't offering you that. They were offering you cups of water with dirt in them. You're not losing anything. But maybe if you've got some trauma, you still feel like it's a loss of some kind. And it is a loss of some kind, but you're going to get so much better. And your health is the first thing you're going to start noticing. Yeah, so just be kinder to yourself, because the teddy bears come upside down, and that makes me just, you know, be softer to yourself. You've been through a lot. Yeah. Maybe you realise that you weren't listening to your intuition and you're unhappy about that. But don't be. Twin flames again. It takes as long as it takes. And again, like I said before, people can go 20 lifetimes and not recognise it. But you've done that. You've graduated it. So you don't need to go back to that classroom. You don't need to sit on the small seats that you don't fit in anymore. You're looking for emperors and empresses that can help you evolve. These people are just going to pull on you and rip your clothes and kick you. Like, yeah. So you detox from these energies. Yeah, they're heartbroken. 2 heartbreak cards. But they kept you heartbroken, and it's not tit for tat. Oh, but maybe what's happening is that it's actually worse for them, okay? It's worse for them because they treated you like crap. When actually somewhere inside they loved you more than anyone else. And that's hard for them, because you can walk away with a clean slate, really. You gave your best. You know, you were hanging around, you were giving cups of fresh love to people that were giving you dirty water. You can walk away, and you know, they have to live with that. Yeah, and possibly they weren't listening to their intuition. Yeah, they were bluffing. They were bluffing themselves, they were bluffing you. Yeah, they resisted the connection. Yeah, they recognise their cloudy judgment now. Maybe you're recognising your cloudy judgment, you know, like not listening to not allowing it, your intuition voice to be the loudest, but you are now. And again, I'm being called to call on the appropriate angel, but healing's here again. Yeah, you were dealing with energies that were lustful in nature. Perhaps you had to fall into that for a while. That's what you thought you were only good for. That's what this person probably wanted you to feel only good for. Your intuition card again. But you listen to your intuition now. You're in this status, divine feminine, emperor status. Yeah, you might not have been 6 months ago, 6 years ago, but you are now. I think you've let go of the hope of this. I think that's what you were living in. So you were constantly giving out fresh cups of love. Oh, I just hope one day they give me a cup of love that hasn't got crap in it. I hope one day. And then you recognised, oh, I've got a cup of love here. I can actually just give that to myself. I'll just drink from that. And then you started drinking from that. Then the divine started filling that cup up. Then you started realising that you have your own well. Then you started getting healthier. then you started to move away because Spirit was asking you to visit this gorgeous spiritual world that's clear and full of divine love. And this wasn't. This was a sewer well. Yeah, you don't have heart fog about this anymore. This is over for you. But I got a hit then. This could have ended you. You had to leave. Okay. That water was becoming poisonous to you. Maybe that's why that detox card is coming out. Again, that can't be for everyone, but that's the intuitive hit I got, and I don't always get it when I see that card. Yes, of course, these people, you know, a person didn't want you to be separate from them. They wanted you in cloudy judgment. They didn't want you to heal. They didn't want you to think about detoxing. They didn't want you to find your sword. They didn't want you to walk in Empress status. Of course they wouldn't. You were giving them fresh cups of love. You had a well of clean water when they've only got a sewer. It's metaphor, obviously. Of course. And rather than recognising that, they started playing games with it, and the divine took it away. So now they can drink from the sewer that they were trying to give you, or they can go and find the spiritual well themselves. Tell me more about that, Spirit, please. Oh gosh, I better stop. I could do this forever. Yeah, so rest is here. Rest is here because you've learnt the lesson. Don't think for a moment at one ever that you haven't learnt this lesson. You have. You found the well, the spiritual well of divine water, and forgive yourself for having to endure all of this, but you've graduated, okay? And whatever they're feeling is theirs. It's nothing to do with you now. Your energy's not there. They cannot feel you. And I think that's where it needs to be. Yes, they might come back proposing serious things, but remember that they more than likely are only going to be able to offer you a sewer, and you know it will contaminate your water essentially. So think about it, okay? Especially, and don't think about it too much when you're resting. Think about nicer things like you want to do that help you. But yeah, and call on the appropriate angel, please, because they're asking for you to ask them. Archangel Michael, thank you for being here. Thank you for the protection for myself and the Divine Collective. Please bless us, so mote it be.